More than 100 million Americans have created an account on a government website and looked at a number with one word sitting directly above it: estimated. For a specific group of the people watching this right now, that single word is quietly overstating what they will actually collect by $14,000 or more, and nobody at the Social Security Administration is required to say so. Not a typo, not a clerical mistake somebody gets called into an office over, a built-in assumption inside the math itself, printed in plain sight on a page most people glance at once and never open again. Here is the short version. Your statement does not know what is actually going to happen between today and the day you file, so it guesses. It assumes you keep earning exactly what you earned last year, every single year, all the way to a retirement age you have not even locked in yet. For a lot of people, that guess lands close enough. For a specific group, it does not land close at all, and the group it misses hardest is the group with the least room to absorb the surprise. Stay with me. The fix takes about 4 minutes once you know which button to press, and I am going to hand you the exact path to it before this video ends. This is not a guess on my part. It comes from research the Social Security Administration's own Office of Retirement Policy published and reconfirmed this year. First, 3 quick reasons some of you are already deciding this does not apply to you. All 3 are wrong. Reason 1. I already checked my statement. I know my number. Here is what checking usually means in practice. You opened the page, saw a dollar figure in a box, and closed the tab, feeling either relieved or resigned. Almost nobody clicks past the number to the assumption sitting underneath it, the one deciding whether that number is even in the right neighborhood. Reason 2. I am nowhere near retirement. This is a problem for later. This should worry you most, because the administration's own research found the opposite of what you'd expect. The further you are from retirement when you check, the less accurate the number tends to be. People closest to filing get numbers fairly close to reality. People a decade or more out get numbers that can miss by a much wider margin, and those are exactly the people telling themselves they have plenty of time. Reason 3. My financial advisor already handles this for me. Most advisors, including genuinely good ones, pull the number straight off your statement and drop it into a spreadsheet. The assumption baked into that number is not something advisory software questions unless somebody specifically tells it to. You can be working with an excellent advisor and still be planning around a number nobody has ever stress tested. Reason 4. I am already retired, so this is behind me. It is not. The same word sits on your survivor's estimate, what your spouse would collect if you died tomorrow, and on your disability estimate, what you would collect if you became unable to work before you planned to. Neither number locks in until the event happens. Both carry the exact same assumption, and we are going to walk through both. If you are not subscribed yet, do that right now and turn on the bell. Social Security's rules and the fine print buried inside them change constantly, and almost nobody explains what any of it actually means for your specific numbers. That is exactly what this channel does. Subscribe, and let's get into it. The information in this video is for educational purposes only and should not be considered financial, tax, legal, or investment advice. Any situations or examples discussed are for illustrative purposes. Consult a qualified professional for your specific situation. Here is the source, by name, so you can look it up tonight. In 2008, 3 researchers inside the Social Security Administration's own Office of Retirement Policy, Glenn Springstead, David Weaver, and Jason Fichtner, published Research and Statistics, Note number 2008-05, measuring how accurate that estimated figure turns out to be once people actually retire. The agency reconfirmed that research in its own content review as recently as April this year. Their finding, among people receiving a statement at age 55, 78% land within 10% of their real number. That sounds reassuring until you sit with the next line. Better than 1 in 5 do not, and it gets worse the younger you are when you check. At statement age 40, women's estimates come in a median of 6% below what they actually receive, and 30% of women differ from their real number by more than 25%. The Employee Benefit Research Institute's 2026 Retirement Confidence Survey, released this past April, supplies the other half of the problem. 46% of people who retired in 2025 retired earlier than they had planned to, and 76% of those early exits were for reasons entirely outside their control. The statement assumes you choose your ending date. The research says most people do not get to. This word hides in 3 separate places on that same statement, and each one hits a different group of people. We are starting with the one that affects the most people, and it belongs to the man I want you to meet next. The first place this word hides is the one everybody looks at first, your retirement estimate. In plain terms, estimated, on that line, means the administration takes your most recent full year of earnings and assumes you keep earning that exact amount every year, all the way to whichever age you're looking at, 62, full retirement age, or 70. It does not know about a layoff, a diagnosis, or a warehouse that closes and never reopens at that wage. None of that is unfixable once you know to look, and I'll show you how shortly. Walter did not know to look. He is 64, a former distribution center supervisor in Omaha, Nebraska, with one employer for 22 years. At 58, his statement projected $2,340 a month at full retirement age, 67, built on his supervisor's salary continuing 9 more years. At 62, his facility consolidated into a site 2 states away. Walter did not relocate. He found part-time inventory work at roughly half his old pay and stayed there until he filed, at 67, exactly the age he had always planned around. Different number, because those 5 lower earning years replaced higher earning years inside his top 35. His actual benefit, $2,282 a month, $58 less every month than the figure he had mentally budgeted around for 6 years. That does not look like much sitting on a page. Stretched across a 20-year retirement, it is $13,920, close enough to call it $14,000, gone before Walter knew there was a gap to look for. If you have stayed with me this far, you are already ahead of most people in his exact situation. Coming next is the version of this word carrying the highest dollar figure in this video, the one almost nobody checks before they need it most. Everything so far applies whether you're single, married, or somewhere in between. But a second place this word hides belongs to the people least prepared to absorb a miscalculation. Widows and widowers relying on a survivor's estimate calculated years before anybody needed it to be accurate. And subscribe right now so you never miss the parts of this system nobody else explains. Because what comes next is the version of this trap that catches families at the worst possible moment. Here is the mechanism. If a working spouse dies before reaching full retirement age, without ever having filed, Social Security calculates the survivor benefit using that spouse's primary insurance amount, the exact same formula built on the exact same assumption that produced the retirement number sitting on their statement. The difference is timing. That statement was calculated years earlier, assuming years of future earnings that a death cuts short. The years that never happened do not get quietly replaced. Whatever lower or zero earning years already sat in that person's record stay locked into the calculation instead of dropping out the way they would have if that person had lived and kept working toward the age the statement assumed. Eleanor learned this in Madison, Wisconsin. Her husband operated machine tools for the same manufacturer for 3 decades. A year before he died of a sudden heart attack at 59, they pulled up his statement at the kitchen table and saw a survivor's estimate of $2,890 a month, built on his machinist's wage continuing 9 more years to his full retirement age of 67. They planned their life insurance gap and mortgage payoff timeline around that exact figure. He never got those 9 years. Social Security calculated his primary insurance amount using the earnings he actually had the day he died, not the fuller career the statement assumed he'd eventually bank. Her survivor benefit, $2,520 a month, $370 less than the number their planning had centered on. Stretched across the decades, Eleanor may spend as a widow. That gap is worth $88,800 or more, the single largest figure in this entire video, belonging to exactly the person with the least capacity to absorb it. One more place this word hides, more briefly. Your disability estimate carries a lighter version of the same issue. Social Security does not wait for a convenient birthday to become disabled. It freezes your earnings record at whatever you actually have on the day you stop working, not the fuller career your statement quietly assumed you would eventually have banked by then. Listen for yourself in this list. Warehouse, construction, and manufacturing workers, whose bodies retire on a different schedule than their paperwork does. Nurses and other physically demanding healthcare roles, where a back or a knee often decides the ending date, not a calendar. Self-employed and commission-based workers, whose final working years are the least predictable of anyone's. and unpaid caregivers, disproportionately women, who cut hours or leave the workforce entirely for a parent or spouse in exactly the years their statement assumed would be their highest earning ones. A 2018 Urban Institute study tracking workers from 1998 through 2014 found that 56% of full-time employees in their early 50s get pushed out of a job before they are ready to retire. Here is the timing problem, and it is not a manufactured deadline, it is built into the math itself. The Social Security Administration's own research shows accuracy improves the closer you get to retirement. That means the years when this number is least reliable are the same years you have the most runway to actually close the gap and the least reason to think you need to. Here is exactly what to do. Log into your My Social Security account or create one at ssa.gov. Open the retirement calculator, recently updated with a bar graph for comparing scenarios side by side. Enter 0 for future earnings or your realistic future income at a lower wage, instead of leaving the default assumption untouched. Compare that to the number you've been assuming. If you would rather do this by phone, call 1-800-772-1213 and say this: I would like to review my earnings record for accuracy, and I would like an estimate based on my earnings stopping today rather than continuing to my planned retirement age. If the representative reads back the same default figure, say this: that number assumes continued earnings. I am asking specifically for the version based on stopping now. If you are married, ask one more question on that same call. I would also like to understand my spouse's survivor's estimate under that same stopped earnings assumption. One honest caveat: of the 3 ages shown on your statement, the number at 70 tends to be the most overestimated of the 3 because it requires both continued work and delayed filing at once, a combination fewer people actually follow through on than assume they will. As you watch the rest of this, hold one person in your mind, someone you know who has never looked past the total sitting in that box. By the time this video ends, you will know exactly what to send them. Walter checks his number twice a year now. Eleanor sat with her sister-in-law the week after the funeral and ran her numbers before another silent assumption could cost someone else in the family 6 figures. Neither did anything wrong the first time. They read the number the way the page was built to be read, and the page never mentioned the asterisk hiding inside that one word. Right now, more than 100 million people hold a My Social Security account, and everyone can pull up a number with the word estimated stamped across the top. Most will never click the button showing what happens if their year doesn't go the way the government assumed. Log into ssa.gov and run the stopped earnings version of your estimate. If married, run your spouse's survivor's version too. If either number is off from what you've planned around, call 1-800-772-1213 and use the words from a minute ago. One last note: if a pension, a business sale, or a major income swing is part of your picture, a fee-only planner is worth a conversation before you lock in a claiming age. Send this to one person you love who still has 5 or 10 years before they plan to retire and has never looked past the total on that page. That share might be the reason they catch a $14,000 gap with a decade left to close it instead of finding out the week they file. That is what this channel is here to do. Subscribe so this research keeps reaching you before the next number quietly shifts under you. There are other words on other government pages doing exactly the same thing. The next video is on screen right now. Watch it before you close this tab. If this handed you something you didn't have 10 minutes ago, share it so someone else gets those minutes before they need them. Comment the word verified below. I read everyone.